So now we've made our cool little 3D model. We've got a 3D object in Illustrator. We've got artwork mapped onto the surface. What we want to do is spin that around and have an animated GIF out of the other end of it. We're going to have to use Illustrator and we're going to have to use Photoshop. So come with me. There's a little bit of math. I'm just warning you for those of you who are like, there's math. It's going to be okay. Just come with me. It's going to be fine. I'm sharing my screen. We are going to Illustrator and taking a look at our objet. We got our beautiful little project here that we've got wax paint on there, absolutely on the one side. What I've got to do is get back into that 3D menu that we had going before. And as you know, if I click on this and say Effect, 3D Materials, Extrude and Bevel, it will say, wait a cotton picking minute. You've got a circle here that has a 3D object or a 3D effect attached to it. Do you want to put another 3D effect on this? No, I absolutely do not want to do that. What I want to do is edit the existing 3D effect. So don't go back to your effect menu, 3D materials. Go to your appearance menu, window, appearance, or if you happen to have put it into your menu over here on the side, it's a little ball of sunshine. So open up your little ball of sunshine, and there, when you select your object, you will see it says 3D Materials Effects. Do you want to edit that? 100% I do. And there's my menu, and now I can play. So I've got my object. I want to mess around with this. Right now, my view is off axis front, which is just great. It gives me a good, clean view of the front of my object. You'll notice my numbers down here, this is where the math part comes in, are pretty wacko. In the x-axis, we're at minus 18. So what I want to do, let's just think about this for a second. We want to spin this thing 360 degrees, right? In order to get one rotation. And then what we can do with an animated GIF is say, make me a loop, just keep spinning. So what I want is a number that is divisible into 360. And I want a relatively small number of iterations for that. So I think what I'll choose is 30 degrees. I'm going to rotate this thing 30 degrees every time. I'll end up with 360 divided by 30 is going to be 12 frames in my animation. Makes sense so far, I hope? So what I want to do is rotate this thing 30 degrees once I've made my first frame. And then we're just going to continue to rotate 30 degrees every time. Might take a little bit of, get a calculator next to you and go subtract 30, add 30. And there's a trick right in the middle, and I'll show you how to do that. But the first thing we want to do is get this as our first frame of our animation. So I have just selected this with my big dumb arrow in Illustrator. You, come with me. I'm going to copy it, edit copy. You know how to do that. It's under the Command C or Control C. And so now I've got it in my back pocket. And now what I'm going to do is switch into Photoshop. By the way, this trick is I'm just holding on Command Tab on a PC. It's, I think, Alt Tab or Windows Tab. I can't remember for sure. But you can see all of your open applications. So I'm going to Photoshop. And I say, in Photoshop, hey, Photoshop, give me a new document. Command N or File New. And it says, you notice that just switched. It just says, well, I'm looking, I notice in your back pocket, you've got a file that is 132 by 139 pixels. Do you want me to make a new document based on that size? And the answer is 100% I do. Create. Cool. And it says, okay, based on actual size, it's this big. Well, that's okay. I can zoom in on that and blow it up. And you know how you could change the size of these kinds of things. So this isn't about the size or the resolution of the file. This is really just about how to make an animated GIF. So I'm going to paste this document, and it says, how do you want to paste that? I'm going to paste it as pixels, and it goes plop. Super. I've got a 2-layer file now in Photoshop, my layer 1 with my first frame of my animation and my background, which I am going to get rid of. I don't want that background layer, and I don't need it for my application. Duplicate. No, I don't want to duplicate. I want to delete it. Doink, doink. So there we go. So now I've got are you crazy? Yes. Now I've got a 1-layer file. Absolutely. Is this working yet? So now comes the trick. We're going to go back to Illustrator, and I'm going to take this guy and rotate it 30 degrees. Now, if you do your math, you'll say, well, I'm already at minus 18. So if I go up to 0, I'm 18 points ahead. If I add 12 more to that, that will be 30 in total. So if I type here 12 degrees, it will say that's a completely 30-degree rotation. I hope you're with me. This is a bit of a trick. So I'm going to select all, copy, switch back into Photoshop, and paste that thing. Again, pixels. Yup, doink. You'll notice what it does too. It pastes it back into the same spot, and it kind of centers it on that space. That's what we want. We want that thing to go whoop. We don't want it to spin from the top or from the bottom. We want it to spin from the center, as though there was a spindle, an axle, right through the middle of that thing, and it's going to spin on that. So that's the trick. Back to Illustrator, another 12 plus 30. I bet you can all do this math in your head is 42. Cool. Select all, copy, switch back into Photoshop, paste. Oh, it won't paste until I say yes. Notice those little blue boxes around the outside. Photoshop is saying, until you tell me this is okay, I'm not going to let you do anything. I hit return and it says, okay, now you're fine. And then I can say paste me and it says, another thing with pixels with you? Yes, I do. Okay, return. I'm going to hit return now so I don't get that mistake happening again. This will be a little bit boring here for a second because I'm going to go so you can zoom me up. I'm just going to do this quickly. Okay, select all, copy, and then I'll show you the trick. Once we get to 162, we have a trick that we have to do. So I've got my rotations going. I'm pretty happy with how that's going. I'm in Photoshop and I can see I've got 7 layers already. And I'm up to 162. So my next rotation wants to be 192, right? So if I grab that and start trying to pull that, notice it stops at 180. It won't let me go past 180. And 192, I'm still 12 numbers away from where I want to be for this particular rotation. So here's the trick. Right in the middle of the rotation, what you have to do is notice that 180 this way is the same as negative 180 down on the other end. So from negative 180, I can go up 12 numbers to 168. Yeah, I'm gonna have to type that in, 168. And now I've got the right rotation. So now I can keep going, copy and paste. I'll do that and then I'll come back and show you how to do the rest of that. So if everything worked for you and you followed the math on that thing, you should end up here where your custom rotation on the x-axis is minus 48. And as you recall, when we started, we were at minus 18. I don't want to do the minus 18. I've already got a frame in my animation. My first frame, the layer 1, is minus 18. So I don't want to duplicate that. So I've got 12 frames right now in Photoshop, and I'm going to stop here in Illustrator. Okay, so far? Now we're ready to make our animated GIF. What we're going to do is go back into Photoshop. I've got my 12 frames showing up here in my layers menu. What I want to do is open up this timeline window right down here. Um, Not often that we play around in this thing, but this program has so much capability to it. Let me see if I can get zoom out of the way so we can actually work here. At the bottom, there's a little button that says Create Frame Animation. You can also switch to Create Video Timeline, but we're going to use our layers to create a frame animation. So here's a little bit tricky. You click the Create Frame Animation, and it says, okay, there's one frame of your frame animation, layer 1. I don't want just layer 1. I want all of them. So I've got to come back over here to this little hamburger menu on the side of the timeline window that says Make Frames from Layers. And it puts them all in there for you. And it even gives you a little preview button at the very bottom that says, are we there yet? Oh baby, are we ever? This is actually working. So that gives you kind of a hint of what we're about to do. Notice everything is flying. It's going really fast. So if I just select all those frames, I can click on one and then shift click all the way down to the bottom end. If I grab 0 seconds here at the very bottom, I can say, give me that, maybe a tenth of a second for those guys. And then again, hit that play button and it'll say based on a tenth of a second, that's how fast your animation is going to work. Okay, so you can experiment with that, see how happy you get until you get to the point where you say, okay, I'm delighted. And you could, of course, choose one individual one and say, I want it to pause here for just a little bit longer, half a second, maybe on the minus 18 and the very back one. But you can choose how you want to do that. Now that we've got something that's working, I want to show you how to save this thing because it's a trick and it's different. There are probably better ways to do this, but this is the way I know how to do it and it works. So I'm not going to fight it because it ain't broke. So I'm going into the File menu and I'm going to say Export, Export, Save for Web Legacy. This will give you a chance to save a GIF file in the way that it knows how to use. And we can view this file inside a regular browser. We can look at this inside Chrome, for example, or whatever you're using. I'm not using a preset. I'm just going to use the regular GIF file. Here it is, says GIF, and it's going to be, this is my what's called a CLUT, a color lookup table. Um, Down here, I've got animation looping forever, and I can also preview the animation right there, see how it plays out. Super, I'm delighted with that. So then all I've got to do is say, let's save this thing. And it says, what would you like to call that? I'm going to call it flip, and we'll put it inside the animation. And it's, you could say images only, it will work with images only. You can also save the HTML, but we don't really care very much about that. So we're going to save that inside animation, save it as flip. And it goes, bloop. I'm going to do that. Fine. It does it in the background. Now I'm just going to go flip into Google Chrome, and we're going to open up a new tab. And inside this new tab, I can go to the File menu and say, open a file. We don't do this very often. We don't open files very often from our hard drive, but that's where we are. And there's my, I want to go to animation and say, where's my flip animation? Flip.gif. And there it says, based on what you just asked me to do, that's what we've got, people. And there is our beautiful animation that we made of our flippy little disc happening inside there. I hope you found that helpful and kind of fun, and I will talk to you more later on. I look forward to seeing what awesome things you make with all these goofy videos that I make. See you.